Hello, everyone, and welcome to round two of the Motorsport Australia OFI Cup here in Qatar. This race was a few days ago now, and following on from round one, which was in Australia last week, where I managed to secure a P4. I pretty much drove around in no man's land for majority of the race, driving around with about 5 seconds to the cars in front and 5 seconds or so to the cars behind, which was pretty lonely. But after the pit stops, I was just aiming at bringing the car home in one piece. Probably pushed a little bit too hard with the tires at the end. I had to forfeit a lot of time. Anyways, moving on now to my first qualifying run. The initial pace was pretty good. I knew I was not going to be challenging for pole just yet. Hopefully can towards the latter end of the season. But that's okay, just trying to put a lap on the board here, taking turn one, missed the apex just a little bit. And again, missing the apex there, probably not carrying as much speed as I was in practice. The confidence wasn't quite there. Obviously, since I've come back from my probably 18-month break, my qualifying confidence has been a little bit all over the shop, and it's lacked a little bit, and it's probably been my downfall in a number of league races. So every week just trying to build on that pace, and as you see, just locking the rears there, sending it in too hard, which was a shame because it wasn't even pushing particularly too hard, but still lost the rears. So that just shows I guess it's a bit of a skill issue. But I was doing low 20s, almost pushing the 19s in practice, so I knew that I should be able to secure a top 5, top 6 at the very worst. Moving on to my second run here, obviously sitting in 19th halfway through. It was actually a short qualifying tonight because of the timing issue around Qatar, which was identified in PCF1 of PSGL. Apparently they weren't getting the sector times right. I have no idea how that happens, but thanks, Cody's. Now cutting forward to the second lap I did in qualifying, which ended up being my only valid lap, which was extremely disappointing because, a short qualifying, everyone's getting 3 runs and I'm only putting in one valid one, and it's not even with the peak grip of the session. So yeah, extremely underwhelming. Not exactly demotivating, probably the opposite. Definitely need to put more practice into qualifying. The pace is it's almost there, but it's just the consistency is what I'm seriously lacking. Even this lap, I obviously tried to put in a relatively representable lap, but I was just aiming to get a valid lap on the board because, yeah, as I said before, at this stage I'm sitting in 19th, halfway with only 6 minutes left of qualifying, more than halfway through. Not exactly ideal. Just obviously Delta shooting up by about 6.5 tenths almost, just because of that mistake I made on the brakes, flying through the final sector, just using all the track on the inside, on the outside. This corner I actually struggled with quite a bit, especially on the first few runs of practice. I was actually running wide every single time, and when I was trying to keep the car on track, I was just losing the rear. Anyways, bringing it up to the line, it's a 1 minute 20.2, which was, yeah, about 2 tenths off my personal best. So I knew that on the last run, if I could put it together with a bit of track evolution, that I could get down to my personal best. But P5, it's roundabout where I'm expecting to sit, behind the likes of Campbell, who was the F3 champion, Greg, who was contending for the F3 championship, Riley, who was in F3, and then Oscar, who's an engineer for Ferrari. So I've got some strong competition at the front end, which is great for experience. Moving on to the final run now, just know the time's there. I've just got to put the lap in, sitting 7th, so there is definitely room for improvement. Again, just aiming for that P5, especially in these early rounds while I'm just trying to build my confidence and just learn week by week. Gaining 7/100ths or half a tenth by the time I'm reaching turns 5, 6, and 7. flying through the right-hander, using all the track, coming down to the hairpin, just all of a sudden losing time. I don't actually know why that was, and I've gone a 10th down, even though watching it back I don't actually feel like I made any visual mistake, and looking at everything else I don't actually see where I lost all that time, and finding a little bit here, really knowing there's a lot of time on the exit and just running a little bit wide and getting a bit of oversteer, and that was the lap done. 10th down going into the last sector. I know that I'm not improving. Greg does a 119.7, which is a rapid time. Coming through 1/10th, and yeah, just absolutely nothing. So moving on to the race, starting 7th, slightly disappointing. Getting the race started now, we get a decent launch, overtaking Jack off the line, 6th place, just trying to maintain position off the start and leave the door massively open, which was my fault, and the Williams just gets a free position for absolutely nothing. Now the games begin of just trying to stick in the DRS train, especially after last week where I unfortunately got cut off. No idea how I ended up going off track there and picking up a warning. That was just a very silly mistake. I think I honestly just took my eyes off of my own car and I was just focused a little bit on too much what was happening ahead. Going forward, like I said, last week getting cut off from the train was extremely disappointing because I feel like I have the pace in the race to keep up with them. With obviously in the DRS, it's not exactly easy to keep up with those guys because they are very quick, but I feel like I have the pace to do so. I haven't exactly had the chance to explore that just yet. I had half a chance last week, but I had to send the tyres and the battery on the outlap a lot harder than I probably would have wished to make the 3-second undercut work, and I managed to hang with them for 5 laps, picking up my second warning there as well on only the first lap around Qatar is definitely scary because it's very easy to get warnings, especially once the tyres die out because the track is so quick. Main aim for the start of the race was just to get past, and as you can see, probably a bit of desperation, didn't really need to overtake there, but as I said, I was just a bit intimidated by last week because I know what can happen if a few laps go on and those front guys break away, and I just don't have the chance to race with them, which is extremely disappointing because driving around, by yourself isn't exactly fun. There's not exactly a lot to learn, so I was just aiming to get past the Williams as quick as humanly possible so that I could attach onto the back of Oscar in his Ferrari and just drag around with those guys because we're all on the hard tyres. Again, pushing onto lap 3 here, just aiming to get past. Got so much straight line speed as the Williams has already lost DRS to the top guys, which is more or less what I predicted, and he's fighting it around the outside and then again sending it up the inside. Just think I can get him on the exit here, turn on the overtake, drive around. He goes ultra defensive. I'm not sure why he did that. I feel like he might have been lacking the bigger picture of the race because just like that we lost another half second, almost an extra second to the top guys, and that was enough to stop the race dead in its tracks. For me, it seemed like P6 was going to be the best from here because, once that DRS is broken, especially in a grid like this, it's not getting patched up. I could have tried something with the undercut, but again, the tyres would have been dead. They would have passed me and probably dropped me. Getting past the Williams now, and as you look in the top left, the gap's 2.4 seconds to Oscar, and there's just nothing I can do. I do try pushing for these next handful of laps, just trying to bring it down in case they're trying to tyre save or anything along the lines, but the gap just doesn't come down, and that's just extremely disappointing because it's lap 4 and I've unfortunately already realized that is impossible to catch them without something extremely favorable happening, especially when I'm heading the train now. You can see I've got Jack in the McLaren and then the Williams behind me, who it's just, if you look on the map down in the bottom left, it's a 2-pack race. It's just the front 5 and then there's everyone else, and I feel like I do have the pace in the race to keep up in that front group, but yeah, again, that only bounces back on me not being able to deliver what I should be delivering in qualifying, and making it harder for myself by putting cars between me and them. Moving on to lap 17 here. This is getting to the pit window. Not a lot happened. Skipped through a lot of the first part of this race because I literally didn't get overtaken. Didn't really fight with anyone. Just drove around. As you can see, I've got a nice little flock of cars following me into the pit lane. A couple of the lead pack pits as well. I think my teammate actually came in behind me. Yeah, so unfortunate for him, he gets the double stack, but that's just what happens sometimes, unfortunately. I know that I'm not getting any undercut on the front guys because like half of the front pack pitted at the same time as me, so I'm not going to be able to gain too much. I know that Oscar is the last man, I believe, roaming out there. Campbell did the medium to hard strategy, so he's on a massive undercut and a few seconds ahead of Greg and Riley, but they'll inevitably catch up with the tyre delta over the last few laps. Tyres were surprisingly tricky to drive on the outlap. All of the practice laps I did was with the medium to hard strategy, but in the race I sort of seagulled a little bit and saw everyone else using the hard to medium, and I just inevitably followed and jumped on that strategy. Moving on to lap 24 here, you can see P5 as a 3-second penalty. I think maybe there's a chance I can bridge that gap, but it's going to be highly unlikely. 5 laps, I'm going to need around about 7 or 8 tenths per lap, and also factoring in that I'm on 2 warnings, so I can't pick up that last one, otherwise I'm losing that position to Jack, and probably not the Williams. But going into these last few laps, I knew that Jack was inevitably going to show up because he was probably saving battery, saving tyres, and I knew that this P6 wasn't going to be exactly free. I'd still have to work for this. Despite sitting in P6 the entire race, I literally activated DRS twice. Otherwise I was running in clean air the entire time, which was nice, but not exactly what I wanted. Going ultra defensive here, starting lap 27, thinking Jack was going to try and make the pass. Ended up tucking back into the racing line. As you can see, just the end of the straight just gained so much time, and yeah, it gives me a little tap actually going through turn 1. I know that, yeah, his best chance of overtaking me is going to be with the DRS down to turn 1. That's pretty much the only opportunity you have. Maybe into turn 4 if he gets a good run, but that's very tricky. You see, going through the last sector on lap 27, just Jack following in the dirty area is just so difficult. He was under 2 tenths, and there it stretches out to almost half a second, just because it's so difficult to keep the car on the track. Starting off lap 28 here, this is absolutely critical to keep this position. This is going to be Jack's second last chance to get past me. You can see he's just reeling me in like a fish in the last probably 50 to 100 meters of the corner. Get a little oversteer on exit. He's just 1.5 tenths behind me. I think we're going to stay on board for this entire penultimate lap. You obviously can't see my battery, but I was on about 40% at this point, and I was just trying to charge up through every corner. I knew that even if Jack was a tenth or two behind me, it wasn't particularly a stress going through the lap because the dirty air was so strong. Especially going into the last sector, all I had to do was stay ahead, and there's not exactly much overtaking opportunity throughout the lap, so I knew that it would be pretty easy. As you can see, yeah, he's practically pushing me through the corners, and I've got almost a full battery here, so I can use a little bit on the exit to maintain the lead. Not too stressed about how close he's following me into the last sector, because I know the dirty air is extremely tricky, so I know that if he can stay attached to me, good on him, but also that's going to be extremely difficult, and you can see the time just stretching up a little bit, gets to 2.5, almost 3 tenths. Going into the final corner, hopefully we can gain a little bit on the exit, showing about 2 tenths, but we get it up to almost 3.5 tenths on the exit. Just burning the battery, trying to break the toe. Feel like I kept it legal, picking my line, middle of the track, going into the corner. Ends up pulling alongside, leave him the room. He's obviously got a little grip. He goes out wide and actually picks up the 3-second penalty. I felt like I left enough room there. Might be different from his point of view. Nothing came up in the steward's room though, so absolutely nothing to worry about. Just rounding off the lap now. Jack's got the 3-second pen. The rest of this lap was just taking it super easy. Nothing pushing. And just bringing it around the final corner, just completely missing the apex like it was a suggestion. Crossing the line now, and that will be P6 after a pretty boring and uneventful race except for those last 3 laps. As you can see, picking up cleanest driver, which means absolutely nothing, but yeah, congratulations to the podium sitters. Congratulations to Greg making it 2 from 2. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like and a subscribe. And if anyone's got any feedback, keep it constructive. Other than that, see you guys in the next one. Ciao.